Zach, thank you for being here, brother.
My pleasure. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So, if there was one idea, concept, something that's had the biggest impact on you, what do you think that would be?
Well, this is obvious if you've seen my stuff, but it's obsession. Just that one beautiful word. Um, Somehow I like fell into talking about it 2 years ago ish, just naturally, and yeah, I mean that's an easy. I can go more into it, but yeah, that one
So,
word.
why obsession?
When I look back on my life and when I look at the people who've inspired me, it is the through line through all the progress they had. And it's kind of when I talk to different creators who are trying to figure out what to talk about, the one thing I think is really important is having this missing ingredient, right? Something that people have always been looking for that they can use to, achieve what they want to achieve. And for a lot of people, I think obsession is that ingredient. For me, it definitely was. And when I look back on the things I did, that was the thing I needed. And I didn't always have someone in my corner kind of pushing me to obsess. And so I try to do that through my content.
We view obsession in such like a negative light. Like when people talk about it, it's usually in a negative way. They talk about like Michael Jordan and the dark side of him. Do you think the people who are obsessed are less happy with life or more happy with life?
I think you'll have split answers. I think some of them will say it's not about being happy, like it's about their mission more than
Mm.
anything. I think others would, and this is the camp I'm kind of in, is like that is where I get my joy from. It's like following that obsession and making progress. And so it's a weird word, happiness, but I think it would be very split. I think for some it's so the pursuit is so painful that they would hesitate to call it happy, but it is where they get their joy, their purpose out of.
It's an interesting perspective. It's something that I think Jordan Peterson changed my mind on because he was talking about how happiness is so fleeting and you need something, a greater sense of purpose above that happiness in order to keep you grounded and to keep you like moving in the right direction.
100%.
Yeah,
He has a great quote. One of his best is, "You should be a monster." Have you ever heard that line?
absolutely heard that
You
line.
should be a I forgot the full quote, but
I
it's
think
so good. Just
it's
you look up on YouTube, Jordan Peterson. You should be a monster, and that is like obsession.
that is obsession.
Yeah.
I think it's you should be a monster and then you should learn how to control it.
Yes.
Something
Yeah.
along those
Yeah.
lines. So what would you say you're obsessed with?
People ask me that a lot.
I'm
It's
sure.
really
Yeah, that's a
hard.
common one.
I don't always have a good answer for it. And the thing about obsession is when I explain it to people, it's more than one thing. There's a thing you're obsessed with, an action, a core activity. If you're obsessed with podcasting, that could just be conversations, having a pure, real conversation. And so there's the thing, and then there's the feeling, which is letting yourself obsess, letting yourself be completely consumed by it. What I'm obsessed with, I think it's a combination of writing and design and just creating things with those two tools, activities. Yeah, at its core, that's kind of like what I've been doing. But I think it will change. I think obsession, people think it's like one thing, but I think you can have a lot of one things throughout your life. It's just that one thing can change over time and you can, go into different paths.
Writing and design, definitely two things I want to talk about in this episode.
Yeah.
Especially because when I look at one of the reasons why you popped off, and obviously design's a huge element to that, and we'll definitely get into that. But the way that you write and the way that you write, it's almost poetry to a certain degree. And I don't think too many people would argue about that. It's like almost like self-development poetry. Have you heard that before?
Sometimes, yeah, it definitely is more like poetry than anything else, especially like the Instagram posts, the short stuff I write. Yeah, because I try to make it sound, I don't really think of it like poetry at all. I've just been doing those posts for like not that long in the grand scheme of things, but like 4 years. And so I just do them. I don't really think about them. But it is definitely more poetry where when I write those, I am like speaking them aloud in my head over and over and over to make sure it sounds good and when you actually like hear it in your brain. And so, yeah, I do think of it in that lens.
Have you done that for a while or only since you've been starting to speak the tweets into animations?
No, for a
So
while.
you've been doing
Yeah,
that for a
like
while.
literally since I started doing that type of writing, which is probably like 3 years ago.
Take me through that process of writing. Like, what is it an idea that leads to you then sitting down and being disciplined and trying to come up with that format and that flow to it? Or do you have this daily practice, a way you go about it that then leads to the end result?
Yeah, right now I am like the opposite of these people who there are a lot of creators who talk about like having systems and
Yeah.
automation. I talk about this a lot too. And I think I'll go through phases in life where yeah, I do need something like that. But especially when you're starting out, I think it should be as pure and as real as possible. And so for my like system, it's really simple. It is just waiting for these short, like small pieces of an idea to come, taking that and then expanding from there. So like those posts I do, I will just be walking and have like the first part of it, and I'll write that down in my notes app on my phone. And then later I'll go and sit down and like expand the whole thing on it. And that process is really just like get the first line down and just keep typing. And then those take me like people would probably be surprised how long those take me, like just the short, like portrait style poetry, I guess you could call them posts. Sometimes takes me like 20, 30 minutes. But it's a fun game because like I posted one yesterday that I think is one of my best performing ever, and it deserved to be because I took the time to like piece it all together and say it over and over and over, and that makes more people share it, and makes more people read it, and so it's a fun game.
What was that one? Do you remember just the
Yeah,
overall premise of it?
it was something about be impossible to define, and it was like really out there. It literally said in it to like fake your own death and like and I don't remember the whole thing, but it was very extreme, but it just resonated with people. And when I can do that, like I love that I can make content like that. That in there it literally says like become famous, then fake your own death. Like it's ridiculous, but the fact I can do that is amazing because a lot of people when they like I wouldn't say I guess I've kind of blown up, but like a lot of people when they get bigger, they just become more normal to appeal to everybody. But I've kind of done the opposite, and that's been fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a funny process.
Because I have to like the videos I make too. Like um, our volume kind of goes up and down. I'm trying to get it really consistent and high volume, but you know they're really similar at the end of the day. So it's like how can I make them really different? Just have to dial up different emotions and be a little more extreme. I think that matters.
Has that process become easier for you with time now since you've been doing it for 4 years? The process of, you said it takes you 20, 30 minutes to write one of those things. Has that time span decreased with time, or has it always been a similar process?
I think the process has always been similar, but they've just gotten better.
Yeah.
Yeah, like anyone who looks at anyone who writes consistently and you look back, your old writing is so shit, and it's like that's just natural. So I don't know if I've gotten faster with it, maybe a little bit, but I just think it's gotten better.
And what would you say to that person who's in that first 6 months and they're starting to create content and it is still shit? Is it just stick with it? Is that the best advice you'd have for them?
Well, what I say, which is a step above, stick with it, is I say like there's 4 steps. It's choose one thing you want to do, whether that's writing or tweeting or a podcast. Do it every day, get better every day, and then wait 5 years. And the thing that people miss, people do the people do one thing, they do it every day, and they do wait 5 years. But the thing people miss is not getting better every day because that is like the actual hard part. It's if you're like a disciplined person, it is pretty easy to show up every day. Like truthfully, like you probably like podcasting a lot, right? You could do it every day.
Yep.
But the actual getting better every day, figuring out the one tweak, learning that one thing is hard, and most people don't do that. And that's I think there's so many creators you see on Instagram or Twitter, anywhere they've been doing it forever, but they just haven't grown, and it's because they haven't done that piece.
And I think that people will see success and see something like what happened with you, which it was like slow, slow, so slow, sudden.
Mhm.
And they'll think it's like you got lucky or it happened overnight. But it really was just you staying in the game long enough and
Mhm.
iterating and getting to that point then that you would then be looked at to have this massive hockey stick type of growth. So it's an interesting perspective for people to just stay in the game long enough to get lucky.
100%. And the thing that people the big secret of how I took off with those videos is the first like 30 I made with the animated videos were just word for word things I've written, which is like, you know, I had years of data, years of content to go off of that was original, that was mine. And that is, in my opinion, those videos are about 80% scripts, 20% animations. However, I think an unbelievable animation can make the video, but those are hard to get. Um, it is the script. And so that's why it worked because I had all those years and because I already had it. Like, I think I had 200,000 followers on Instagram. So that was like a good base to go off of.
What role did Pixar play for you in that process of coming up with this idea that it's kind of taken over?
Yeah, it has taken over, and I like I've told the story many times because I want the lore to be clear. Is I was inspired by Naval, who had done a few of these, but just didn't do them at scale, and then I started doing them at scale, and it really worked. And now there's so many people doing these. It's actually crazy,
I know.
and it's wild, and yeah, it's been fun. I mean, so I have my own animation team that I manage and direct, right? And so when I started doing this, like it's been like 7 months now, I think, since I started doing these animations, and I just got obsessed with Disney and Pixar and trying to understand, even though ours are so simple, trying to understand just how they thought about things and do things. Um, Pixar, people obviously know Pixar, but it is insane how many hits they had in a row. They had 2 decades of hits where they never missed. Like, that is unheard of for, like, a creative company, creative studio. Like, think about it. Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., Bugs Life, Cars, um, WALL-E. There's
They go
literally
on and
every
on.
single one was a hit, and it was because the founder, his name, Ed Catmull, he was his first obsession, I talk about this path of obsession a lot, and we could talk about that more, but one part of it is the pinnacle. You have this end dream. Our friend Danny, right? His pinnacle is to record a podcast in Madison
Nice.
Square Garden. You already know it.
Yep.
His pinnacle was to make a first animated film, and they did it with Toy Story. And after that happened, he was kind of lost. He was like, I did this. Now what do I do? And then he became obsessed with building this creative organization. And that's why Pixar was able to last that long, because he and Steve Jobs and John Lasseter, who were the founders, they were obsessed with the culture. And so yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out how to get really good at, because I want to do a lot more with the animation stuff. And so yeah, I've been obsessed with him and Disney. Been reading Disney's biography. It's so good by Neil Gabler. Recommend it. Because yeah, even though I'm very open, I don't make these videos myself. I have played a big role, I think, in directing and designing them, because it matters.
What do you think you've learned from Pixar?
Just how to manage and work with creatives, because it's the best thing in the world. Like, that was the first time I really hired people and paid people to help me make content, and it's the best thing in the world. What Pixar was really good at, which I'm trying to get better at, is just giving their animators all the pieces to succeed. They would give their animators like everything so that they could create quickly and create accurately. Attention to detail, on another level with Pixar. They used to talk about this thing called the perfect penny problem. Really funny story how, think about a Pixar movie, how much is in there and how much detail's in there. And that the animators would obsess so relentlessly over like the perfect shade of a penny in the corner of the scene for like a second, right? And it's like, that is like, there's a line there where it's like too much.
Yeah.
And then it's like, how do you play with that line? Because our videos, the one thing I try to stand by is the quality. Like, if you look at our videos, it's really rare that there's like a typo, or even the typo is not the biggest deal to me. If there is one, it's more just like a blurry line or like something out of place. I care a lot about that. And so, when I am trying to bring people onto my team or help, find animators in general, I always look at quality over everything, because everything else can be changed, everything else can be taught, style, etc. But quality and attention to detail and understanding that is hard to teach.
And love is such a big part of that. Like,
Yeah,
I
loving the
love
work.
I love the Twitter banner you have, which is I think it's a quote from the creator of Pixar, which is, "We don't make movies to make money. We make money to make more movies."
Disney, yeah,
Oh, that's from
yeah,
Disney.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's love plays such a big role in that, and I wanted to ask you about discipline and its role with obsession because for me and a lot of things that I'm obsessed with, it comes from more of a place of love than from discipline. It doesn't require that daily grind because you're excited to work hard. And that was something for me that I learned through sports growing up. And it gave me that outlet, gave me something that I was excited to work hard for. And then I had lost that after I stopped playing sports. And it took me a while to find that thing again that I was excited to work hard for. What was that path like for you to find those things for you that you were excited to work hard for?
See, I kind of had a similar story where I stopped playing. Did you stop playing sports in college?
Yep.
Yeah, same story. And I luckily was like falling in love with the gym. So I stopped playing soccer.
Yeah.
And so I didn't really go through that period, I feel like, without having the discipline. Like I wanted to go to the gym every day. But it took me a long time to, I think, find. Your question was how do you find new things you love after you lose it?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. It's hard because I don't know if I've struggled with it that much. But it's because I feel like I always had the things, It was just
Mhm.
like, how do I get there? Because I had soccer, and then I had, my first business I was doing, which I didn't really like. And then I had, a job I did before that. And it's just, how do I get to doing this thing, which I'm really just at like in the last year, which is like making content, and writing and creating. I don't know. I think it's trying a lot of things. I think it's the one thing I'll say is, I love this quote by Paul Graham on this topic where he talks about creating and finding work you love. Paul Graham's blog. Have you read it
I
ever?
have not, no. I
So
don't think
good.
so.
You got to spend a day and just go
Yeah.
through all of Paul Graham. Do you know who he is?
I'm familiar with him. I think I've heard Tim Ferriss talk about him
Yeah,
a
he's
fair
the
bit.
founder of Y Combinator, which is
Okay.
that it's like a startup incubator. They
Mm.
started like Airbnb and Stripe, I think.
Okay.
So like, yeah. And he has a great post called How to Do What You Love.
Mm.
And in it he talks about how if you just create relentlessly, like create a lot of things, you'll find your way to what you love, kind of like a stone going through like a river. Like it will just flow there if you keep creating. And I love that way of putting it because that's kind of what I did. Like my early posts were so random, but I just kept doing it every day, and I found my way to like things I liked. That's what I'd say. It's just creation at its core, right?
Absolutely. And that's also great advice for someone who wants to create content, but they don't know what to talk about yet.
Mm,
Because I find so many people have that issue. They're like, oh, I want to start doing this thing, but I either have so many interests that I don't know what to narrow down to, or I'm just kind of at a loss. So I think just it almost goes back to what we were saying before with like staying in the game long enough to get lucky. Like you just have to keep going and keep iterating to then find that thing that you love and that you're excited to work hard for.
mhm. Yeah.
And so let's talk about the Founders podcast because so how I found out about it is I think you either tweeted something or retweeted something, and it was a conversation with David Senra,
Yep.
David Senra, and the guys from the Acquired podcast, and it was a conversation on obsession was the title of the episode, and I think you either retweeted something or tweeted it out, and I decided to give it a listen, and all these guys were just talking about the biggest founders in history and the commonalities between them and their whole process of working. And then from that, I really fell in love with David's work on the Founders podcast and going through the stories and these people in history who did these incredible things and chased obsession. What type of role has that podcast played for you? Because it sounds like, or it seems like that's something that has been a mainstay for you.
Yeah, I've been tweeting and stuff so much.
Yeah.
And I don't know where I posted about that specific episode, but it was great, especially if you like podcasting, right?
Yes.
Like you probably resonated with a
Yeah.
lot of it. Yeah, he just skyrocketed in the last like year, his podcast. I think because it used to be like a private paid podcast. And then he made it public, and he's just so talented. It is literally a podcast like about obsessed creators. Really, that's what it is.
Absolutely,
Which
yeah.
is like what all great founders are, I think. That's why I love him. Like he he'll comment on my stuff, or I'll comment on his, and he'll like put the black flag. He like
Yeah, I
respects
love it.
obsession.
He
It's
definitely
dope.
respects
Yeah,
position.
it's sick. And Um, the other day, I posted a picture and tagged him. I'm like, this is the founders section in the bookstore because it was business biographies, and I was just like talking about how he owned that like section now mentally. And
Mm,
then Patrick O'Shaughnessy, who he owns a company who they technically I don't know if they own or they publish
his
his
episodes,
podcast,
yeah.
and it's under his brand. And he says how it's incredible how many people will hear these stories from these people, like Edwin Land, right? Who was the founder of Polaroid. He was like Steve Jobs' idol.
Mhm,
He so many people will know about Edwin Land because of David Senner's podcast, way more than will ever read the books about Edwin Land,
mhm.
which I think is amazing. And so it's kind of done that for me. It's like shown me different obsessed figures. He just makes it so easy. It's such a good value. It's you get these long books that take 10 hours to read, longer some of them in, an hour and a half, and he picks out the best parts. Picks out
Mhm.
the best parts every time and delivers them with such good energy. And so whenever I'm like a little bored or like need some motivation, I'll just like put that on and it's literally like a motivational podcast, even though it's educational too, which is why it's so good. He's done a great job. Really probably one of my favorite content creators who's just doing what he'll do forever.
Yeah,
Really rare,
obsession.
really rare. Yeah, pure obsession.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason why I brought it up is because for 2 reasons. One, that David's obsessed,
Yeah.
and that if every single podcast is essentially a story of obsession. Like, the first one that comes to mind is James Dyson, and I forget how many years it was till he had any type of success whatsoever with the vacuum cleaner was the first
hmm
one,
I think so.
and
I don't know.
I think it was, like, 8 years of him working every single day for from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. with no success. That is pure obsession, and that takes a different type of human to be able to do that. So my question off of that is obsession something that is nature or nurture?
Like most things, I think it's a combination. I think you look at these obsessed individuals and they just go through these life experiences when they're young that puts them in this environment to have this moment.
Mm,
This is like I always bring things back to like this path of obsession because I look at everybody and they all kind of follow it. But it all starts with this moment where they find this thing and they just absolutely fall in love with it. Arnold lived in this random town like where was he from? Turkey, Austria? I forgot.
Austria.
Austria. And he just stumbles in this like old school bodybuilding gym. And like, what if he lived somewhere where he never found that? What if because back then I don't think gyms were as big as they were now. What if he like grew up and did something else and, you know, became average with it and got a normal job and never became Arnold? Um, and so, Steve Jobs was in a place, San Francisco, where, computers were becoming a thing. He would join these computer clubs,
Mhm.
worked at a factory making computers. If he lived somewhere else, maybe he never would have. And it's also a lot of these guys go on. I'm realizing they have very unique experiences when they're young. Like
Mhm.
Steve Jobs went to India for a while. There's just so many stories of like they just do these random weird things that give them a different perspective on life. So there's definitely that side of the nurture, and then obviously there's the nature. There's just the wanting to be completely possessed by something, and I think there's part of that that is just who someone is, from a young age that can't be taught. Um, so I think it's a combination.
Absolutely is a combination. It's something that I learned through, I think, Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. That's so much of like these people who do incredible things is unique, weird experiences when they're young. I think it was like Bill Gates was able to get his 10,000 hours in coding before he was even like 21 years old just because of time and place. And one of your favorite, I think it's a tweet, but from you, is there's 1,000 different yous if you were born in like 1,000 different places. I know I'm butchering that, but something along the lines of touching upon the importance of environment. What role has the environment you set up here in New York played in your success?
Oh, yeah, it's completely everything. Like it's hard to explain too, but it's before I lived here, I've lived only in New York for like 2 years, but before then I was just kind of alone a lot, you know, doing stuff, creating stuff, running a business. But then I moved here, and then especially in the last year, met a good group of guys, got an office I was telling you about. with two other, savage entrepreneurs, creators, and just having that be normal, having that be something like you're around every day is just insane. It's insane. Like you can't put a value on it. It changes everything. And so yeah, I wish I did it sooner, but at the same time, maybe I wasn't ready yet. Like I hadn't done enough to um even like provide value or be in that group. Um but I think you can find ways to do it no matter where you're at. And it can start online. It can start just meeting people online. But if you can do it in person, I think it's super super valuable. And if you can move to a city, I think it's super valuable. Yeah,
Such a great
and
point.
just forcing yourself to see different things and forcing yourself to have some pressure on you. New York's an expensive city. Those are good things that if you're debating doing, the answer is yes. In almost every case.
Did you feel that pull to go to Austin with seemingly everyone out there and this whole community that is in our world? Um, Essentially be down there. Was that pull pretty strong for you?
Kinda. Especially last fall when our friend Danny
Yep.
moved because I went down with him. I've been there twice, for like 2-ish weeks each time, and it's a really fun place. And if I wasn't in New York, I probably would be there. But I don't know. I don't really feel that right now. Right now, I feel like I'm in like the perfect place. New York is amazing because people are always visiting, and so it's like every single week, like you're here, every week someone sick is visiting, and I get to meet them and talk to them, and that I don't think happens anywhere else. Maybe Austin, but I don't know. Just like the grit and the energy here right now is perfect for what I'm trying to do. So um, I don't feel that super hard right now. No.
Do you think will you see that changing?
Maybe,
Yeah,
yeah, maybe we'll see.
we'll see.
I feel like yeah, we'll see. I like this quote. This kid. He's not. I guess he's a kid. Caleb Simpson. Do you know that guy? He
No,
does
I
the
don't
room
think so.
tours on TikTok and
Oh, yes, yes.
YouTube. Yeah, he crushes the content. He says like, yeah, I wanted to beat New York before I left it. So like
Huh.
I kind of have the mentality.
That's a
Like
cool way.
it's a great line. It's
Yeah,
like
that's
I
a
want to
great
have
line.
like the nicest place I want to live. I want to, have a huge network. I want to have enjoyed like fully it, and then I'll probably go off. I do want to travel a lot more though. I haven't traveled much, but yeah, New York for a while.
Let's go through that path of obsession, and I want to highlight one part in particular, and that's the dark part. I think
Yes,
it's
I love that you know it.
number 3 of Act 1.
Damn, you
'Cause
researched.
I feel like that it stuck out to me so much because I understand it, and I understand that that's where things get hard. Because at first it's you start getting the wins, the early wins, and then you enter into the valley of despair where not much is happening and you're putting in a lot of work, and it's hard to overcome that and to keep going. So let's just let's go through all of them, and then we'll highlight the dark part.
Sure. So I have to remember them. It's bad if I don't remember it. So there's 7 parts. It starts with
The moment.
the moment you fall in love with your obsession. Then you have the vehicle, which is, what is the first thing you're packaging that obsession into? For example, if you love having conversations, maybe you start a podcast. That is your vehicle. I loved writing. I put it into, writing shit on Instagram.
Mhm.
That was my first vehicle. And then 3 is the dark place, which is like my favorite part. That is where like obsession is born. That is where it lives. One day I'll make like the best movie ever about the dark place, and it'll be amazing.
Let's
When
go.
when the time comes, because that concept is so good. That name is so perfect.
The dark place.
Yeah, it's perfect because it's like mysterious and confusing and scary, but it's like I don't know.
It's where
Anyway,
greatness is born.
yeah, it's where greatness is born. It's where you're alone. It's when you're the lone wolf and you're all on your own and you're just spending hours and hours doing this thing, hoping that it works, hoping that you'll get there, and eventually you get out of the dark place and it's great. And you go back when you need to. Like I was just watching the McGregor documentary, right? And that dude just goes in and out of the dark place all the time.
Interesting.
And because he had such insane success and then failed a lot, went back to the dark place, and then he came back sometimes. And so it's like it's there for you when you need it. It's there for you when you need to have that time to be in your own world. Um, yeah, and then after what do you know 4? I
I
have to
don't know
remember it.
for
If I had my
top
phone on
back.
me, 4 I think is the I'm gonna misphrase them because some of them I'm still working on, so none of this is definite. But I believe it's 4 is the climb. It has to do with just like that's your journey up. Um, 5, I believe, is sorry, 4 is, I believe, the sacrifice. It's where you're really
Sacrifice.
building and you have to give things up. And I think 5 is some version of the climb. 6 is the pinnacle, which is that end moment, that big dream that you're obsessing for. Usually, it should take decades. This could be performing at Madison Square Garden. This could be selling your company, for tens, 20s, tens of millions, hundreds of millions. And then 7 is the twist, because most people, after they achieve the pinnacle, they go and do something else.
Mhm.
Arnold goes and becomes an actor. Ed Catmull, Pixar, he goes from obsessing over making a film to obsessing over the company Pixar. So you look at these icons, and most of them have gone down this very similar path.
How do you think people who are chasing obsession, how can they not get caught into the "I'll be happy when I achieve X"? Because I find so often that people, like, there's this thing called gold medal depression for a reason, where Olympic athletes, they are obsessing over this one goal for their entire life, and then they finally accomplish their goal, and they're like, "Now what?" And they fall into this deep despair. How do you overcome that? And how do you enjoy the moment while still striving towards heaven?
I like that name, gold medal. What was it? Gold
Gold
medal.
medal depression.
Yeah, it's so good. But I mean, because obsession is the thing that you obsession is the thing.
Mm,
Obsession is the
that's a great
prize.
reframe.
Yeah. And it's you know, it's hard though when you do have that pinnacle, the thing you're going for. Um, but a true obsession, I think, is something that you will want to do forever. Something you just want to do the thing forever. And so you have this pinnacle because I think it's good to have things that motivate you. Like I get motivated by numbers a lot. I just want to reach certain numbers. But I know it's just on to the next. And so yeah, I don't think there's a good answer for that. I think it's hard, but I think it's just starting things, a core activity that you're going to want to do forever. And you can have that twist if you want to, but that twist usually comes, it's not even usually worth thinking about
Yeah.
because, in my opinion, it's something that comes after multiple decades. You know what I mean? And by then you'll
Absolutely.
want to go do something else.
Yeah.
So I think it's like pick the thing you truly going to want to do for so long that you won't think about that depression.
I think that reframe is super important. Just the obsession is the thing. It's not the goal.
Yeah.
It's that process. It's
Yeah.
doing that process over and over again. And I want to go back to the moment, that first moment where you have the epiphany, if you will, that this is what I should be doing. This is what I need to be doing. Do you have that moment for you?
It's funny. I don't know if I actually have it for me in mind. I think one day I'll figure it out and remember it. But I always wanted to make content of some type. I always was attracted to and interested in people who had these audiences because I thought it was amazing that you could share something and have it be seen by thousands of people. From a really young age too. I have the word behavior act, which is the name of my Instagram, in my notes from 2017, which is that was 2 years before I even started posting. And so for me, I don't know if I have that moment. The big moment that changed my life was stopping college sports. And for a lot of people, I bet for you is similar. It changed everything. Doing that, I had a whole world opened up. I felt like, and so things kind of started for me there. And but that was sometime after that moment. One day I'll figure out what that moment was. But for me, that was the dark place though. After I left college, that was my specific dark place where I was just alone in the gym. I went from a really good school to community college. I just had nowhere to go. It was just me and my obsession, and that was it. Yeah.
That 2 years where you had the name in the notes, but you
Yeah.
didn't act upon it. It's something that Danny brought up in my podcast with him. He's kind of making fun of you. No,
He brought up about me?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
about you.
really?
Because we were talking about this idea of bringing the things in your head to reality. And he was saying that you had this name for 2 years, but it took you 2 years to act upon it. And he made the comment of how far would you be if you had started that immediately? And he was saying how the thing that he's getting better at is bringing the ideas in his head to reality. What was that like for you? That 2 years, was it a voice in the back of your head that kept popping up? And then what was the switch that flipped?
Yeah, that's funny. Danny was talking about that. Yeah, I totally believe it. It's like if you know you're gonna do something forever, you should just start it right now because it's gonna be so bad when you start. But if you know you're gonna do it forever, you're gonna get better, and you might as well just start that process now. Um, but the key with that is it's something you'll do forever. Like I genuinely plan to write things on the internet or whatever version, whatever the internet's called in 30 years, forever. You know, Danny wants to do podcasts forever. It's like when you find that, everything else gets a lot simpler, I think. But those 2 years, to answer your question, I that was when I started doing the photo booth company, right? My first business, and I don't know why I didn't start the content yet. Like I clearly wanted to. I just think maybe I didn't feel ready or deserve it or didn't feel worthy of sharing that stuff. It took me a long time to even write under my own voice too. Like if you scroll back through my feed, it's all just quotes like in the beginning. Weird random quotes and like random content. But that helped me, over time. And now like I don't really post anyone else's stuff. It's just my
Yeah.
my stuff. Um yeah, and so but I wish I didn't do that. I wish I just started my name, writing under my name earlier. Um Yeah. What really triggered it, I've told this story a few times, is I started seeing this girl who had like 10,000 followers on Instagram, and I got kind of jealous, and like that was it. I just started.
Let's
So
go.
maybe it wasn't. I don't know if it was jealous. I didn't get jealous of like guys talking to her. I just got jealous of like um her having that audience. I thought it was cool, and so it's like, you know what, she's doing it. I could do this, and so I started just posting stuff, and just didn't stop, and that was it.
Didn't stop. That's
Yeah,
the key
just
there.
I just for some reason and some people have it. It's just this rare blind commitment to doing something for decades. And it is really rare, but you can tell it in someone when you meet them and when they talk about their mission, and it is everything. And my favorite people have it.
It's the enthusiasm.
The enthusiasm, and it is blind commitment, like blind. Like you're not even looking. You just know you're going to do this activity forever. And you'll figure out different vehicles, different ways to put that core activity into things. Like all I want to do literally is talk about obsession for the rest of my life, and maybe that will change. It probably will, but as of right now, that is what I would like to do forever. And so now it's just about like, how do I spread that idea? What different mediums do I put it in? What companies do I start? What movies do I make? And this all sounds so extreme right now, but these are decades. You have a while to do this stuff.
People think too small.
Yeah.
Like it's so crazy. And I always bring up this story of like me starting the podcast, and the best thing that happened to me in this pursuit was the first guest that said yes had 100,000 followers. Because before that point, I thought it would be impossible to get anyone on the show with any type of following whatsoever when I was first getting started. And to have that limiting belief shattered was everything. And then that opened my mind up to all these new possibilities. What were some limiting beliefs for you in that pursuit, in that 2 year mark of the time before you took action?
It's so hard for me to remember that time. It
Yeah,
was it was
true.
almost 10 years ago.
Wow.
But um it was just actually it wasn't 10 years ago. It was more like 6-ish. But anyway, it was like the limiting beliefs, I think. I mean, I was going from just like this skinny lost soccer player to like building myself literally and physically, like mentally and physically. And I think the limiting beliefs were just like wondering if I could do it, and
Mm.
like I think I idolized like these content creators so much when I was younger, So it was like I didn't feel worthy of putting myself up to them. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I think that's the answer, And it took me a long time. It took me like my whole thing, and which I'm still figuring out, and going inwards and figuring out, why I'm doing the things I'm doing. But it's just I had a lot of lack of confidence as a kid and failed a lot. And so now I've set these extreme goals for myself to make up for that, right?
Mm.
And I'm just starting to like go deeper down that path and understand what I just said, because that's like a big sentence what I just said, deeper. But at its core, that's what it is. And now it's about, okay, how do I understand that more and do the right things based off it, which you know I'll figure out over the next years of my life.
How are you developing that awareness to become more thoughtful about the where your drive is coming from and where some of your behaviors stem from?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, right now it's hard. Like I'm
Yeah.
in like my life is kind of like a whirlwind right now. Like I just in the specific like last few months, probably the next month or so, where there are so many opportunities coming at me and so many people who want my attention and
Mhm.
help. And it is hard to have that time to help yourself, when you're trying to help
Absolutely.
everyone else. And so I'm getting better at like I'm not used to having this much stimulus. What's the right word? So many triggers that want my time and attention. I'm not used to that. A year ago, it was very different. But it's like now it's like every single day I have to make a really important decision about what I'm going to work on, who I'm going to work with, and so it's been hard. I preach a lot about turning off, like turn on, work out hard, go for a run, but then also you have to turn off, like go sit in the sauna, go for a walk. Um, but I don't do those things every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes I need to because when I do it, I feel so much better. Just getting away from the phone, very hard to get away from the phone,
Get away from the phone.
and it's super hard.
Yeah.
But if you can do it, I think that's really all it is.
Getting away from the phone.
Yeah.
Truly is like it's all it takes sometimes to just
But
put throw that thing
it's
up.
wild how few people do it.
Truly is wild. And it's something that like I'm a victim to as well. Like it's hard to switch that off.
It's the most insane thing how
I know.
addicted everyone is, and like I'm completely addicted right now, but like probably more than ever, honestly. And so I'm working on it, and
Yeah.
I'll figure it out. But it's that is like the one of the, like the modern day cigarette, like the most obvious thing that's fucked up is just how addicted everyone is. It's crazy. It's crazy. Um, that no
Something
one talks about. People
no
talk
one
about it,
talks
but
about.
not really. It's just like accepted.
It's accepted. That's the way
Yeah.
to put
Like
it.
you go to gym, like I go to a very like normie gym, like Lifetime, and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'll go at like weird times sometimes because like I do, but I'll go at like 11 a.m. and I really try not to work out without my phone. I probably 50% of the time I do, but you go and it's just head down on the phone the whole time. It's like the gym is just a new place to scroll. It's not you're not even there to work out. It's just to like mix up the environment to scroll and get some sets in for breaks between scrolling.
Oh
It's like
god.
crazy. Like go to a normal gym, like at a go to a normal gym and look around, especially like at like an off time, and it is wild.
Mhm.
Um, it's wild how many people are on their phones.
I tweeted one time, working out properly turns into meditation. And Danny Miranda commented, I know that Zach would agree with this.
100%.
And I think it's just for that reason. When you don't have your phone and you're putting in the work and that's all you're focusing on, it turns into that meditation.
Yeah, and like I obsess over this honestly lately is like, how do you put yourself in these situations to get these great ideas,
Mm,
right? Like live a creative life. That's what I've been saying to
live a
people.
creative
It's like,
life.
don't. I'm not a fan of like these content systems, these content templates. Screw all that. Like the thing I wrote excuse me, the thing I wrote yesterday, one of my best posts I've ever written was just natural, came to me. That one was a weird one. That one I just sat down and tried to write something. Usually doesn't happen like that.
Mm,
Usually it's I'm out doing something and like I get an idea. I'm also like, so yeah, on that point, it's like, how do you create these opportunities for yourselves to have these ideas and have these ideas come to you? Because your best ideas, almost never, in my opinion, you'll just sit down and write it. Like yesterday, I just sat down and wrote something good, but who knows where it came from? It could have came from something else completely. I couldn't even tell you where I started writing from. Just did it. But usually the best ideas, the ideas that really change your life, you will never just sit down and write them. You'll never just sit down and think of them. You have to go out into the world, do things, put your body in, literally physically put your body in different situations, and these thoughts will come to you and you'll figure out what to do. Maybe it comes from a person. Maybe it comes from you run up a hill on mile 3 of a run on a hot day. And yeah, and so those things, working out without your phone, running, jogging, walking, it's really important if you're trying to be a creative. Really important.
it's not talked about enough. And you brought it
No.
up earlier, just talking about how while you simultaneously built up your mind and your body. And that was really one of the biggest things for you that flipped the switch. How related do you think those two things are?
The same thing, really.
Yeah.
You know, they're the same. Yeah, it's like it's everything. Yeah, like especially the running. Like I started running a lot because I'm like neighbors with Casey Neistat
Yeah.
and Hunter, our friend Hunter
Mm.
Weiss, and they just run like savages. And especially Casey, it's insane because he's like, it's insane how many miles he puts in. And but I think for him, I don't know, but like it is literally a drug. Like I feel differently throughout the day. Like today I'm feeling good. It's because I ran this morning. And
Mhm.
like when I don't run, I just feel shitty. Yeah. So it's like that is totally mental, like it stays with me the whole day if I run.
It's so mental, and it's something that I don't think people realize enough, especially if you're dealing with, like, things like depression or anxiety.
Mm.
Like, to a degree, you can out-train your anxiety. If you're really putting in the work, I know that there's levels to it, and I don't mean that as a blanket statement,
In a lot of
but it's
cases though.
but in a lot of cases, just good sleep, good diet, and training like a motherfucker will do more for you than anything else.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But yeah, that's what I tell people with working out. Like some people work out to stay in shape. Some people work out to like be happy. But the main reason I work out and like try to do this stuff right now is to like literally just be creative and get ideas that I need. Like
Mhm.
right now, I need ideas. That is what I need more than anything. And so I feel like that will come when I do that every day. And they have. Like especially a few months ago when I was really going hard with the videos, it was super hard to come up with those videos every day. Even though they're short, like
It's hard.
it's hard, and the script is everything. Like
Mhm.
in my opinion, the animators are amazing, and my animators are incredible. And like I said, amazing animation too which they are often really amazing, can save a video. But it comes down to the script. It comes down to what you say and what you write, and it's hard to come up with that much stuff. Yeah.
Definitely is, and carving out that time to be creative is so important because, like, you look at this is not something that I didn't realize how prevalent it was and how hard it was to resist, is that when you start creating content and start putting yourself out there, the pull and the dopamine you get from like, even for me right now, I started creating on Twitter, like, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, and just the excitement of writing something, putting it out to the world, and then constantly opening that app and seeing what other people are saying about it. It's hard to create time. It's hard to carve out time to be creative when you're constantly consuming.
It's super hard. Yeah, it's super hard. I struggle with it probably more than anybody. Especially like I get notifications all day, and I get like cool notifications. Not
Yeah.
that you don't, but like
No,
I
I
get
know.
like so many interesting people who are like messaging me, and it's like it's really addicting. Especially on Instagram, you have like the verified
Yeah.
notifications, so I'll just check those like usually once a day because like oh, it's like my childhood soccer idol followed me what's his name followed me, Mario Götze, who's like I don't know if you watch soccer. I don't really watch soccer, but I just know he was like a legend on Germany's national team. Um, Anyway, and yeah, it's super hard. I think one day I'll just figure something out and just turn off. I've debated like on following everybody,
Mm,
but I just feel like those are like temporary solutions.
mhm.
So I don't know, but it's hard. I've been thinking a lot about like the consumption thing. Um, and Naval has this great quote. It's like when you're listening to podcasts, when you're going to seminars, when you're reading books, you're just deciding. You're just wondering if you want to do this thing. And I think that is so true. Like you're trying to figure out if this path is worth it more than you're trying to learn the path. I think when you really committed to the path 100%, you just go and do it.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, like you'll listen to certain things that are like very specific to your path. But I think when you're over consuming, right, you just don't know what to create. And so, yeah, I think about that a lot recently because I've been going through that. I've been kind of like
Yeah.
deciding where I want to put my energy because I have a lot of options. And when I go through periods like that, I notice myself consuming a lot more versus when, okay, I know exactly what I want to create. I know exactly what I want to make. I just, I don't need anything,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah. You just take action. You don't focus on
Yeah, I
the
don't need
learning.
anything.
Yeah.
Don't need anything, you
It's an
know?
awesome quote from Naval.
Yeah, it's like the best. Yeah, it's a great quote. Cause yeah, I noticed myself totally like I used to listen to a lot more podcasts and like
Mhm.
YouTube videos than I do now. And it was because I just wasn't creating as much. I didn't
Mhm.
know what I wanted to do. And now it's a lot less, but like I said, I'll go through periods.
Have you felt the pull to I mean, with gaining 1.3 million followers on Instagram, and you have all these people like you described that are DMing you and following you. Has it gotten to your head at all, or have you felt that ego start to build up at all?
No, I don't think so. And probably just not yet. I probably should have a little more than I have. Like, cause I I probably should have a little more. I don't think it has. Um, like I don't really think about it. I don't think it has. Do you think it has?
I don't think so.
No. Like
No.
I think no, I could be so much more of a douche and it'd be validated, but no. Because I also don't really. It's also like I would say only a smaller percentage of the people actually follow it, like and actually know like Zach. It's still like there's a different username. I
Mm,
don't show my face that much. I'm trying to show it more,
mm,
but it's so it's also like there's a little degree of separation where it's like people care about my ideas, right? Like most of the people there are there for just my ideas and my writing and my videos, not for me, you know. But I mean that's hard to say. That's like
mhm.
every creator, right?
Absolutely, very
Right.
hard to say.
Yeah. So it's like, but no, I don't think I have.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever will because I just feel like it's still so small. It needs to be so much bigger. And so, yeah.
Are you feeling that? Like, do you think you will change the account from Behavior Hack to Zach Pogrob
One day,
one
probably.
day?
Yeah, probably. At this point, though, I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Why?
whatever. Why?
Yeah.
It's like so a bunch of people tag me already there. It's like, why make it harder for them? Just maybe we'll see. I mean, Instagram's been around a long time. So, like, my main goal is to not, like, what's the right word?
Not need it?
Not drop the bag.
Oh,
Like,
okay, okay.
not spend another 2 years just like putting stuff out on Instagram and not sending the traffic to
Yep.
using that audience the right way. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, because I don't think it'll be around forever.
Yeah, agree.
And so like I'm really trying to grow my newsletter, Twitter. Like around 6 months ago, really all I had was the Instagram. And so, right, like
Mhm.
I had the Twitter, I had a small audience on
Yeah, yeah,
Twitter,
okay.
but I had like four, maybe I really didn't have a lot. I think I only had like I don't even remember what it was, 3,000, 2,000, 4,000 on Twitter. And I was like, all right, this is dangerous. Like, if you lost the Instagram, you're kind of fucked. And so now I have like, I think newsletters like 12,000, Twitter's like 20,000. So that's like good. Like, I'm like, all right, if something happened to the Instagram, it would obviously suck, but like, I'd be fine. Like, that's
Mhm.
good enough. Like, egg. Um, what was your question?
Honestly, I don't remember. I was
forgot.
too present
Ask me
listening.
something else. I don't remember what
So
you
I want to
asked.
ask you about like monetizing that audience,
Mm,
and you did that cool collab with 10,000.
yeah, that was fun.
That was fun. That shirt fits so well,
You
by
got
the
one?
way. Yeah, I
Sick.
have one. It
My
fits.
guy.
It's like my
Thank
favorite
you.
fitting shirt.
Legend.
But how do you go about thinking? How do you monetize this audience?
Yeah, it's probably been my biggest challenge. Like I've been trying to
Yeah.
figure it out and the right way to do it. Um, Gotten really lucky, like because it just got so big that had some really good sponsorships we did this fall, which are not this fall, this spring, which have been like they paid pretty well. And yeah, I mean, I've been hesitant to monetize. I've been posting for 4 years. I've only monetized a few times, literally. Like I sold merch a few years ago. Um, did this collab with 10,000. Um, I think it's just because I'm just like a servant mentality. Like I just want to make stuff for them. Um, and so for me, it's like, how do I have this core thing, this core truth, which is obsession, right? And how do I package it into the right things that helps people while still makes me money so that, like that Walt Disney quote, we make money to make better movies. How do I do that? How do I get enough money to just make better stuff and have that cycle just repeat and repeat? You keep building the idea around obsession, and that builds the companies that are around. You keep build the idea, the content around obsession, and that builds the companies around obsession. And it's just this beautiful cycle, right? Kind of like Disney. That's what they
Mhm.
did. Keep making better movies and better content, and people go to the amusement parks and they buy the toys. Um, and so I've been trying to figure that out, and I think a lot of it will come with partners, launching businesses with partners, because I'm like the mentality, I'm just going to start things, do it all myself, because that's how I did my last company. But I'm learning that is just not feasible with
Mhm.
multiple projects. And the best in the game are all doing it with partners. They launch a lot of things. You look at someone like Jocko Willink, right? He does so much shit.
Mhm.
He's doing it with partners. He has killer partners. Um, I did just launch. I don't know if you saw. I launched this private community. Did you see that in my
I
email?
did see that. Yes.
Yeah, and so that is. I launched that pretty subtly, only in the email so far. It's doing really well. That's the first time I've ever done something like that, where it's really just for like essentially creators who want to be around other obsessed creators
Mm.
and grow their audiences, giving them access to me and different like short courses and access to each other. that is going to be interesting. We're going to see how that goes. Cause I never done something like that, but I have like this strong community built already. So I think, that could be a cool way to do things. That's called the arc. I don't know when are you going to post this? Probably not for a week or so, right?
Yeah, yeah, not for
Yeah.
a
So
week or
it'll
so.
probably be closed then because I'm going to close it down, but you could check it out. Enterthearc.com. And, yeah, but that's what I said before. It's like, how do you do it in a way that you focus on the content and you focus on the companies and they help each other?
Mhm.
That's kind of how I'm thinking of it.
It's an interesting dilemma that like content creators go through because you have to lead with value. Like to do anything of substance, you have to be leading with so much value, and you can't be leading with trying to make money.
Mhm.
And it's an interesting balance, and you don't want to like lose that trust with your audience because so many people make these courses that are debatably bullshit in many respects and are charging $1,000 per course, and I'm sure that they're making tons and tons of money, but at what cost? Like, at what cost are you losing that audience as a result?
Yeah, and the key thing I never wanna do is, like, I never wanna be talking about my products all day.
Yeah.
I just hate that. Like, with this community, the way I'm gonna do it is, like, it's open 4 times a year, and that's it.
Mhm.
So, I will probably rarely talk about it on
Mhm.
social. It'll just be, like, in emails because I don't like doing that. I just wanna make stuff for you, and, maybe that's a bad thing in some ways, it probably is. Like, you have to talk about what you're building to get people to know about it, obviously, but I don't know, there's some purity to that. There's some, like, trust built with that. It's also, you really have to believe in what you're selling too. You have to sell things you really love. And I did merch in the past, like 3, 4 years ago, when I just like didn't fully believe it. And so obviously it didn't sell well, because I didn't want to push it.
When are we
So,
gonna get Madhouse NYC?
I don't know when that'll happen. We'll see. It depends. The thing is, life changes fast and, exponential opportunities exist. Like I had my life completely changed in the last 6 months. So I could say, 3 years, but um, Madhouse NYC, for anyone who doesn't know, it's probably most, is my version of the Soho House, like a hardcore Soho House for the obsessed. No posh like dinner. Have you ever been to Soho
I
House?
have not, no.
I've been to 2 of them just as a guest. They're very posh. They're like these fancy dinner co-working. It's kinda like if you combine Hunger Games and WeWork. That's what
Hunger
Soho
Games and
House is.
rework.
Yeah, that's what Soho House
Oh,
is,
too funny.
and it's very posh. I don't really know what you do there. You have, like, tea with business people. That's it. And, like, I don't know. I think these in-person environments are really cool,
Absolutely.
and so building some type of co-working gym compound for obsessed creators, entrepreneurs would be really cool. Um, and have a badass gym, open co-working area, really healthy foods. It would be cool. So one day I'll do that. It's just a matter of when. That's part of like the world. Like I said, you have this core idea, obsession, and now it's just building out everything around it,
Mhm.
doing it in the right way, not messing up this core thing, still talking about it every day. And we'll see. It'll take years, maybe decades, but make it happen.
It's a great idea for, like, multiple reasons, but, like, when you are that person who's obsessed and you're chasing that thing that everyone else thinks is crazy, it's hard to relate to other people because by definition you're uncommon, and then as a result uncommon people are uncommon to find. So finding those people who you can relate with on a deeper level and actually want to be around are hard. And I think that's something that a lot of people who aren't creating content but are with the mindset struggle with, because I find when you start creating content, you start then as a result to build these relationships. But when you're not creating content and the only people you're interacting with are the normies, as you as some people would call them, it's hard to foster those very genuine relationships with people who are aligned with you mentally.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends who are just like completely, they're not really. I wouldn't call them obsessed.
Yeah.
Um, and they're just, they're not making content. They don't have businesses. And yeah, you need to surround yourself with those people, obsessed people,
Mhm.
like mission driven people. Doesn't mean you can't be friends. I don't like the mentality, like shut the other people out, like be friends with them, enjoy your time with them. Um, but just like mentally remember who you are, don't let yourself like, it happens with relationships a lot. It's helping with me in relationships is if you're with a girl who's, just like most girls, they're not like obsessed, hungry, mission driven people. Some are, and it's up to you whether or not you want to be with someone like that. But it's you can feel yourself slipping sometimes, like
Mhm.
the what's the right word? Chameleon boyfriend, where you just like blend in and become like them.
It's a great term.
And yeah, it's a great term, and I've done that in the past, and it takes time. You can do it mentally though. You have to mentally live in your own world at all times. And this is like one of those things that's really hard to teach, but it's like when you are at family gatherings, when you're on first dates, when you are and this is where I start to almost sound kind of toxic, I feel like, but this is just who I am and this is how I've operated is you have to remember that there's a mission and it exists in your head and you cannot let it go because if you let it go for too long, then you lose it forever. And I get like goosebumps talking about it, but it's so true because that voice it only exists in your head. And if you let it die, if you let it go away, it will be gone forever. And that is the scary part is losing it forever because it's hard to get back if you do actually lose it.
It's hard to get back, and when you start taking steps towards that, not only does it get clearer, but so much confidence start to arise within you. Like the example that I think about is with the podcast. Like I graduated college like 3 weeks ago, and it was the last day of school, and everyone that I knew from my time at college, there was like a huge party, and everyone's going to it. But I had a big podcast at 8 a.m. And obviously, I didn't go out. I stayed home, just focused up, listened to a podcast, and went to bed early. And when I woke up that next day, the amount of confidence that I brought into that conversation, because I know that 99% of people would have went, stayed up late, and had a mediocre conversation, and like maybe it would have been fine. Maybe there would have been no difference. But once you're on that path of actually doing the thing and doing the thing all out, it builds up so much confidence within you.
So much anxiety and lack of confidence comes from just not listening to that voice in your head, right? That obsessed voice in your head so much. Yeah.
There's a quote from Taylor Sheridan, which is the creator of like that show Yellowstone,
Okay.
and it's something along the lines of most people fail in life because they don't listen to the whispers.
So good. That is so good.
And it's just truth. Like we all feel this. It reminds me of like the hero's journey archetype, and it's like you get this call, but most people don't take that call.
Yeah, the whispers, the voices, whatever you want to call them, like it's all the same story. And that's actually good for I should figure out a way to put that in like the path of obsession, the voice or the whisper,
Voice.
because it's like that actually is a huge part of it. Give me a good idea. I'm gonna think about that. But yeah, it's really good. I love that quote.
How similar do you think the path of obsession is to the hero's journey?
It's probably super similar.
Yeah.
Like I don't know I kind of know about the hero's journey, the cycle.
Yep.
I don't know if offhand, but I bet you it's super similar. Bet you it's just a different branding for it,
Yeah.
probably. But that's okay. Most of self development, most knowledge is just the same ideas with different branding, right?
It's true. It's so true.
I mean,
People don't
dude, on
realize
Twitter,
that.
the worst thing about Twitter right now is like blankpreneur. Everyone wants to make up their own type of entrepreneur. It's the worst. It's so annoying. I actually like some of these people, so I'm not going to call them out specifically, but just like I don't know, putting like someone who likes plants, they'll put plantpreneur or mompreneur. It's just like no, stop this, stop this madness. I hate it.
Oh man.
That and the solopreneurs.
I was gonna say
those I'll call out.
solopreneurs.
Those are my word. This is my new like enemy. There's like I love having enemies. It's just really fun. And like this is a funny story. When I was younger in the gym, like in the dark place, when I was really lifting a lot, I'd always have a gym nemesis. Someone in the gym.
That's a
and
great story.
this is common too. You're working out and there's a guy in the gym who's your gym nemesis who you never talk to him. You don't know his name. But he's just in the corner lifting similar weights to you, similar like body type, but he's just going a little harder than you. And now you have to go a little harder than him. And it's a competition. And you're always there the same time as him. Even when you go at random times, he's always there.
Why is that? Why
This
does
is
that
your
happen?
competition. You know what I'm talking about,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I mean, it's kind of like the gym crush too. Like everyone has a gym crush, but no, you also have the gym nemesis, this guy there. And then dude, you're bringing me back some good memories. I was at LA Fitness, Smithtown, New York. This is where I fell in love with lifting. And my gym nemesis, I saw him outside of the gym at a wedding.
What?
And he was so not nice to me. So he definitely knew that I was not. he was
You
so like
felt the
rude to me.
energy.
He definitely knew we were nemesises.
That's too funny.
He knew we were enemies. There was just something. Yeah, I wonder how he's doing now. I hope terrible. No, I'm just kidding. But I don't remember what we're talking about. But it's
Talking about solopreneurs.
yeah. So oh, it's fun to have enemies. Just more interesting.
It is, and I find that for like the sauna, that's like very, very good. I'll go into the sauna, and if someone comes in the sauna after me, I
Yes.
have to, I have to out, I have to out sauna them.
Even if they come in after you,
I mean, if they
even
come
before.
in before me,
Yeah,
yeah,
someone
sorry,
before.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yep,
After would be like, damn, you're
that'd be
really
crazy. That's
psychotic.
psycho.
Fuck. But no, the solopreneur thing needs to end. It's like all the big solopreneur. I'm like too deep in the Twitter game. Like
Yeah, dude, me
world
too.
because I'm talking about this. I'm like I shouldn't be talking about this. But like all these solopreneurs who like the big ones who like sell these courses, they all have like massive teams.
Mhm.
And like if they don't have a massive team, they like employ their wife and like people offshore who cost like $8 an hour. It's like or $4 an hour. It's like these aren't solopreneurs. They're just like smart people who hire contractors. It's like it's really rare to be a successful solopreneur. And the real issue isn't that. That's fine. And the issue isn't even people. The issue isn't even people preaching solopreneurship and like selling courses for it when they're not. That's fine. But the issue is like young people thinking they want to do that, thinking they want to like be this like what's it called? Like one person business.
Mhm.
But that's not what young people should be doing. Most people, if you're ambitious, you should be like, I mean, it depends. Like even you, like you want to have a big podcast, you're not going to do it alone. You're going to need help. You're going to need people to help you edit. You're going to need people to help you film. You're going to need, you know what I mean? Over
Mhm.
time. And if you want to have a big enough mission. And I think you're young. Like my goal, like what I'm kind of after now is like, I want to have like a small team, in-person team, like maybe 6 to 7 people of just savages, savages who are like generalists and can do a lot of shit. And then, leverage, contractors as well. That's kind of my goal because I've seen some people doing that really well. But I don't want to be solo. Don't be solo. You can do so much more with friends and partners. I think young people, like especially like I said, I'm too deep in like the Twitter world right now, but I see a lot of people going down that path, and it's just not. When you're in your early 20s, I don't think it's the path.
My biggest like thing that frustrates me with that whole Twitter world is the imitation game that's going on.
Yeah.
And it's like everybody has that like profile picture that's copying Danco. Do you know what I'm talking about? And
kinda.
everyone has like the same bio.
It's all the same.
It's all the same, and they're all just trying to copy these like 4 or 5 top creators. And you're never gonna win that way just because there is no competition when you're being yourself. Like that quote from Naval that I don't even want to say right now because I'm gonna butcher it. But there isn't any competition when you're just being you, because by definition you're one of one. And when you try to be someone else, there's a ton of competition in that. So, it just goes back to being yourself, and it's something that with the animations is interesting to see. Did that frustrate you at all when you were seeing so many creators come in and see the success you were having and then try to play that game for themselves?
Yeah, it's I don't think about it much because like I didn't my style is still pretty similar to like uh Naval, who
Mm.
like he doesn't really do them anymore, but he
Yeah,
inspired me a lot. And he was inspired by and like worked with Jack Butcher of Visualize Value. That's really who the style's from.
Interesting. I
Yeah.
didn't realize
When you
that.
think about it, that's really the style.
Yeah.
It's like minimal black and white. Um yeah, and then Danco started just basically copied mine completely. Which is fine. Like so many people have it's just all the same. It's all very similar. I think ours, like the quality stands out still, I think, and the scripts stand out. I try to you just look at results. Like, I mean, yeah, we're a bigger account, but like we're still crushing the views on everybody. We're about to rip past Dan because Dan's not really doing them anymore. So like that's fun. Even though it doesn't matter, like I just love the competitiveness. Like I want to be the biggest. And like because Dan had like that one video that went super viral,
Mhm.
got like 30 million views. So that like the amount of followers he gained from that is crazy. But in the end, none of this shit matters. None of the followers matter. That's why I don't get too attached to it, like we
Yep.
talked about earlier. But it's a fun, competitive game to be great and to put out a lot of work. So yeah, it didn't really bother me. It does motivate me though. It's a good thing. It motivated me to like try to be better and be a little different and make more types of stuff. Yeah, no. So it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. And obviously, like, it's such a fun game to play. but it doesn't matter in the end. So, like, what are those things for you right now? Like, what are your ultimate values, that the things that you're like non-negotiables are?
Really, there's two right now. It's like I said, taking this attention I have on Instagram, which is like crazy, and using it the right way. Like,
Mm,
like not wasting it. So it's like number one is like I need to do more long form content, stuff like this. Um, Building a newsletter, right? And that, and then just monetizing the right way so that I can, because right now I'm kind of limited with like how much I can make, just because I already have a team I'm paying a lot for, who's helping me create, and so I want to make more of that. To do that, we need to bring in more money, and so yeah, it's like those two things are my focuses right now. It's not like really the numbers, but it also is the numbers because that's what feeds everything. It's like I want to be one of the biggest creators on the platform this year. I think we will. I want to hit 3 million. That's my number one goal, which I think we'll hit easily. Um, Especially once we've been kind of. My goal is to always be consistent, 5 videos a week. We have not done that in a while, just because of different projects. But we'll get back to that, and then that's when we'll really rip. But yeah, so those are my two focuses right now, is like
yep.
longer form content and then monetizing the right way.
And going back to that beginning stage where you were only posting other people's stuff,
Yeah.
and it took you a while to like find that voice for yourself. How did you find that voice for yourself?
You definitely find it through other people's voices, sharing quotes of I shared a lot of like Andy Frisella.
Yeah,
But then over time, he once shared like my own post, which I wrote, which was like that was like the
that's
best day of
cool.
my life. I was like, he's like, best post you'll read all day. Like, that's great. And like this was like 3 years ago, 4 years ago. And so yeah, I think those like little tests of your own things, and then people, like them. Um, yeah, I don't know. What was your question? How to find your voice, kind of?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just like I said. I think finding it through the voices of others is a great way to start. Share what you love. That's how a lot of creators start, right? Like, I think Dickie Bush, right, on Twitter, he just
yep,
started like sharing threads of podcasts he was listening to. That's how he started,
yeah.
and now he's like prolific as hell on Twitter. And so yeah, I think that's a good place to start for people. Use other people's voices to find your own.
That's something that I don't think people realize when like they look at people who are creating content. It's more like being a DJ
Yeah,
than creating the music for yourself. It's
yeah.
like fusing these ideas that you find into this one compact thing that then is your own, but it's taking inspiration from a ton of different
It's
places.
a combination,
It's a
100%.
combination.
And the one thing I'd say for creators, the most important thing ever that you could do is just finding small pockets of greatness that aren't being done at scale. This is the whole game. Like finding something that worked that could have been executed 100x bigger and better. So like two examples. I mean, my example with Naval Ravikant stuff. I mean, I had a weird situation where I met the guy who was making them in person,
Sick.
the clipped bros. But that was an example. Like Naval was making these animations. They were doing pretty good, but not insane. They're doing well. And I thought I'd try it.
Mm,
So it wasn't, because it's really hard, because if the results are that crazy, the person would just be doing more of them,
mm,
or someone else would have already copied it, right? So you have to find these small pockets where you see this like spike. You see something great that the world isn't noticing, right? And then you can take that to 100. Another good example is this guy. He's been going on a lot of podcasts recently. You should try to get him on. Oliver, he sells the chocolate. You
yes,
seen
yeah,
him, right?
definitely seen him.
He'd be a good guest. Um, he's like, yeah, I was just scrolling TikTok and saw like an ad for sex chocolate, but it was like from this. It wasn't even an ad. It was just like a girl who found it at like a little sex shop in like Alabama, and he looked up the brand and he like didn't even have a website, right? So like that is a tiny pocket of greatness that he turned into now like a 10 million plus business
Mhm.
because he just did it 100x. So I think it's those two things. It's like doing it every day, like we said. It's finding small things that are not being done at scale that are working, and then it's what was the other one I said? Combining things that you love. You said, yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm thinking about that for myself right now, and there's a few things that come to mind. So it's always just a good reminder. Like
Because what is like I haven't dug that deep, but what is it? What do you think is like the niche for your podcast? How do you describe it in a sentence?
the
The sentence is
niche
everything.
niche for the podcast. It is true, and it's funny because it's been a hard question to answer because I feel like I have so many interests that are so all over the place. and I wanted to almost take like this Joe Rogan approach where it's like I'm doing this for me and my own enjoyment and love for it. So I'm not even going to try to niche down so much. But I think ultimately what it is come down to is it's a podcast about transformation. It's a podcast about getting better, and whether that's mindset, whether that's health, whether that's knowledge, it's just about transforming and taking the things that are in your head and creating something great out of it.
I like that. I think it's cool to have a feeling you focus on. I forgot where I heard this recently, but it's like if you can make your content leave people with a feeling, they come feeling X and they leave with this
Mhm,
feeling. It's really powerful. So, maybe you don't need a niche, but maybe like mine is like obsession, right? I want
mhm.
someone to read my post and like, even though it only takes a minute, they leave and like, okay, I'm gonna go get
Feel it.
after it.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool to have, maybe you don't need a niche, but you have a feeling. Like Danny says the same thing, or Danny Miranda, like he
Mhm.
doesn't have a niche. He's just gonna build it around what he loves. And you grow long, it takes longer to grow that way, but you build something different. So I respect it.
What do you think the feeling is for Danny? Like
Lately he's been talking about going inwards.
yeah, definitely.
The thing with these names is you just have to make them up over time and commit to them and
True.
then change them. That's the truth. Like I had a different motto before Follow Obsession. It was take the hard route. That was like my motto. It was in my bio. I made merch with it. People liked it. But then you just try new ones. You throw
Mhm.
out new words all the time. You have to throw out new words and terms all the time. I've been learning this. Like I need to do it more. And you throw them out with full commitment. That's the key. And you see what resonates with people. Um, like Follow Obsession is the best thing I've ever made in my life. It's like so many people posted, put in their bio. There's like a dude starting like a clothing brand. I kind of
Let's
have to.
go.
I'm gonna DM him though to tell him like don't copy me directly because it's stupid. Like just like do something a little different.
Yep.
But it's sick. It's still cool. It's like it's resonating with people a lot. And but it's only after I've thrown out 100 different little terms and ideas. Um, like Sahil Bloom does that well too. He'll
Mhm.
always come up with these frameworks and give them fun names, and a lot of those don't really resonate, but some of them really do. And so it's like, yeah, I think it's important. So like Danny will probably have a different thing in his bio for a long time, every few months,
Mhm.
right? But it's like over time he'll find one that really works and he'll commit to that for a while.
Yeah, you only need one that really
Yeah.
sticks, and you can have those 100 failures if you play the game long enough.
Yes. 100%.
So let's go back to that valley of despair, like that dark place for you. Was there like what was that win in the dip that eventually kept you going? Like did you have those thoughts of this is stupid. I'm putting in all this time, all this effort. It's not financially doing anything for me. I should stop.
Yeah, it's hard. Like so my story, I basically started two things at the same time. I graduated from school, started doing the photo booth business like full time. Basically, I graduated and didn't do anything else. Um, and at the same time that spring, I started doing the content. So it was all that spring basically. I had kind of started the business like a year before, but it was just super super small. I was in school, so it was like three things at the same time, and my life was so different. But there were times where I only fell off from the content once for like a month. I didn't post when I was like really depressed, like 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And but I always knew I'd come back to it. There was never ever even like a thought of stopping it. That's what I talk about when I talk about that blind commitment. Like it's one of those things that's hard to explain. It's like I can't really explain it. Like I just started it and just never plan on stopping ever. You know what I mean? So it's yeah, I the hardest things were with that company, the photo booth company. I'd drive all weekend basically. Now I wouldn't drive, but I would drive really far and then do these events. I would drive upstate 7 8 hours, and then home 7 8 hours, and I would just be in the car just like thinking about stuff. Right, those are long times
Oh
alone,
yeah.
and yeah, you just have to like you have to put a trance on yourself that this is worth it, and that if you do this for years, it will pay off. And I would always, when I was at these events, I wrote about this recently a little bit, but I would literally be standing there thinking about where I was going to be like now, which is like no photo booth, just creating, making content all the time, and took a long time, but it's just like yeah, I don't know. There was like always that blind commitment that got me through the
Mm,
dips, because there definitely were dips, especially with COVID happened. That like kind of destroyed that business because it was like an event
mhm,
business, and so there were really dark times. But just this blind commitment kept me going. So it's like find that thing that you can commit to for decades, and not many people have that. It's pretty rare, you know. Like it
it's
might be
very
common
rare.
with like you and me and like our circle, but it's in the general population. It's pretty rare.
It speaks on the beauty of just being irrational. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you look at anyone who's accomplished anything great, it was totally irrational when they first had the idea. The
Yes.
first one that comes to mind is like the airplane and the Wright brothers. Like they said it would be hundreds of years before would be able to create a plane, and they did it in weeks after that article came out or that newspaper article came out. And I think about that, and it's interesting because irrationality is not something that we think of in a positive light, but like I have my own stories with it. I know Brett Ender is a great example of this with like it's irrational to think that you could cure a disease by changing your diet when the whole medical system tells you something else. But there's just so much value in pursuing that. I almost want to call it intuition,
Irrational intuition.
irrational intuition. It's a beautiful
Could be your new
phrase.
word.
That might be
That's
it.
your new niche.
That's my new niche.
Yeah, it's definitely irrational. It's the hard part is when you're young. That's where most people screw up, is they have parents who don't understand the irrationality,
Mm,
because parents just want to keep you safe. They don't want you to achieve your dreams.
mhm.
It's like they say they want you to achieve your dreams, but they just want you to be safe and happy and comfortable, because that's what parents do. Um, I think parents also like are how old are you?
22.
Yeah, really similar ages, and it's just a different world. I don't think it was as easy to think irrationally. Like people weren't. There was no social media. There was no Andy Frisella on your, on stories telling you to like think bigger, and so you have to really live in your own world, especially when you're younger. Which is like that's when you're making big decisions. That's when you're deciding what you want to do, and a lot of people let their parents' dreams overcome
Mm,
theirs, and so you have to keep that irrationality alive, however you can, because yeah, this is all too crazy to be, completely rational.
absolutely. And I want to go back to that place that you were 2 to 3 years ago when you fell into that depression, because I don't think it's not talked about enough, or not talked about that how many people are in that place, and getting out of that place is it's hard because it's a spiral, and it's momentum taking you downwards, and you need to create that positive momentum. Take me back to that time for you.
Yeah, the last time it was, I don't remember when I'm trying to remember it because it was a while ago, but I just been in, it was the dip. Like I've been doing this thing for so
Is
long.
that
I'd had my business for like 3 years, been making content for like 3 years, still like wasn't making that much money from either. Um, and it just kind of hit me and it was hard. Um, I don't exactly remember how I got out of it. I have a thing where I don't remember my past very much. Like it's hard for me to even remember this stuff. Like past like a year ago. I swear. Like I feel like maybe that's normal, but I feel like I do it to like the extreme where like I don't even remember like playing soccer, but I did it for like 2 decades. Like it was all I did. And like I don't really have a great answer for how I got out of it. I just kept going and things got better. You know what I will say actually is like the friends kept me going. Like Danny Miranda has been a great friend to me and has helped. We've been on like similar paths kind of as creators. And me and him started talking like 3 years ago almost, which is crazy. Um, and yeah, so the people I think really get you through it when you're really alone. Surrounding yourself with these, obsessed people who are on the same mission as you, who keep you thinking irrational. That is like what I'd say to anyone who's really struggling. Because other friends will just tell you like it's okay, like be comfortable, but you need that person. You need that person in your ear when you don't have the voice yourself. I think. So I
absolutely?
think
I
that's how I
agree
got
with
out
you.
of it.
Did you have any difficulty finding those people?
In the beginning, yes, because even to this day, like I don't go out of my way often. Like
Mhm,
I don't reach out to people enough. I need to more. Luckily now I'm in like a lucky place where um I get contacted from other people. Like people text me like, "Hey, I'm in the city. What's up?" And just because I put out so much stuff,
Yeah.
they just see my name, and I also put out a lot. I try to like post pictures in New York, so I think that is like another reason. But it's that's a blessing of putting out content though, is people just know you and think of you. So I haven't had to like. I always say, don't network, don't go to networking events, just do shit on the internet, and people will network to you. And that's the truth. That's 100% the truth. But if you really want to be smart, you do both. You don't necessarily go to networking events, but you do great work on the internet, and um you also
Reach out to
reach
people.
out to people. Like the best habit you can do, I read this somewhere or heard this somewhere, just like when you like someone's work, tell them immediately and just don't ask
Mm,
anything else. So like last fall when I really started like blowing up at the animations, right? A lot of sick people DM me because they're just like, this is sick, like congrats. But a lot of them wanted things. A lot of them, um, excuse me, a lot of them wanted help with animations or they wanted to learn what I was doing. They wanted to pick my brain, which was great. Like I helped those people. But the real killers, right? Like the people really crushing it, all they did was message me and say like, "This is sick. Like great job. Keep going." That was it. That was it. Nothing else. And I'm learning like that is what the best do. They just put their name in there. They just say like, "Hey, this is sick. Great job." And now boom, we're friends. I
mhm.
like you. Um no expectations, nothing else. So like that those are the two habits I'd say. It's like surrounding yourself with those people. It starts with putting something out, being interesting, doing something unique and valuable to the world. And then also, if you really want to compound that even more, is like just when you like someone's stuff, just send them a DM and say, "This is sick." That's it.
Gotta leverage the internet.
Yeah.
Have to leverage the internet because, like we talked about earlier, those people are rare in real life. To find those people and to connect with those people and to befriend those people, it's hard if you're not out there on the internet grinding away, doing cool shit. It's hard to just find those people in daily life.
Very hard. They're not really, you're not really going to find them on the street. You kind of have to go on the internet to find them, I think.
What do you think your ultimate why is behind all the stuff that you do?
Like why my mission or why I do it like personally. Well, you said why, so I'll answer that. Yeah, I think it's just like living up to this version of myself that I think is possible, which is probably, like I said, due to some like insecurity I has as a kid, right? That's what, like, and like I said, I have to go deeper down this rabbit hole, but that is what I think it is. I have this extreme version for myself. Most of the things I've dreamed of and like thought I wanted to do, I've done. I have a lot more I need to do. I think I've created like 1% of what I'm capable of as like a creator, as a person. So now it's about like that is genuinely how I think about my stuff, which might sound crazy to someone else, but so yeah, it's about living up to that potential. That's it. That's the whole game. Everything else is just like the results of that, right? Like the obsession, that's like the mission is like
Mhm.
spread that to the world. That is like this thing I was gifted that is just like resonates with people. I am so lucky to have found that. That's really the hard thing.
Finding that
Choo-
thing.
Yeah, super hard. Um, like now I just have to build things off that, which is also hard. But I feel like finding this truth is harder. Most
Mhm.
people never ever find it. Like this idea that you can spread. Most people never find that. You know, like Tim Ferriss, he spread a lifestyle to the world. He gave people a way to live.
It's a great example.
Andy Frisella gave people a way to live with 75 hard. Right? That's what these best people do. They create these books or these programs that become literal like Bibles, become religion to people. And so I don't know if I'm trying to do that, but maybe I am. And it's about how do I take obsession and put it in that. And it's
Mhm.
like, yeah, so that's like the why and the mission. Yeah,
I'm excited to see how that pans out on a big enough time frame.
we'll see. I'm hopefully next time we do a podcast, there's my goal with like podcasts is like if I go back on them is like have done a lot of shit between them. So
Sweet. That's a great idea.
yeah,
Great way to think about it.
yeah,
Well, Zach, dude, this was a blast. These 2 hours absolutely flew by, and just grateful that you took the time today.
definitely. Thank you, man. Great questions.
Thank
Killed
you,
it.
bro. I appreciate that. Awesome. Thank you, man.
Oh, I didn't blow my nose. Killed it, man.
Bro, thank you.
Great job. That was fun.
Thank you.
You killed it. No notes either.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No notes. That was impressive. And you did your research, bro. Thank you.